Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The only thing that you can say is yes. And so I feel like it's so cool because it's a place where all you say is yes, 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 yes. And, you know, I love the feeling of sort of coming away bruised and sore from a class and just, but feeling like I moved in a way and I existed in the world in a way that was yes. When we are creating, we are at this precipice, and we're in this place, like Elizabeth always says, of possibility and of discovery that is beyond, you know, borders of academics or what have you, the borders of our lives. And we are at this kind of place where, you know, the only like moving forward is creating.
The downward momentum is actually really important. Don't be afraid to like push them down into the ground. It's light, but it's like significantly downward.
What I really like about it, why it appeals to me more than other dance forms, is that there aren't any rules. You really can just do whatever you want, and no one's gonna like judge you. No one's gonna say that's not creative. No one's gonna say that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So I like that. It's really, I don't think basic is the right word, but it's really fundamental in that way.
What I really like, which like any contact class I've ever been in, is kind of the ways that like contact opens up pathways for physicality among people in like other ways, you know? So kind of like, here's this funny dance form, I'm going to teach it to you, but then like over the course of the semester, people are like, you know, you're sitting in class at the end and people are just kind of like touching, you know, like the way, like the kind of like the physical engagement of like people who take a contact class together is so exciting to me.
Teaching has been so joyful, like so joyful. I think part of it has to do with the fact that it feels a little bit like a performance, and like because you're in this role, there's this kind of necessity of having energy or like a certain kind of presence, and so just putting myself in that situation, it's like often enough to shake me out of whatever funk I might be in. And I think a lot of that for me, especially with contact, has to do with my love of the form and just feeling like I can watch people dance and just know, like, it just, for me, it's life affirming and comforting.
contact is like a real dance, it's like a real embodied dance practice that like is real and tangible in its effects of the body, but it's also kind of like constantly eludes interpretation or like constantly eludes like definition in this way. And I think thinking about writing in that same way is, you know, like I am not writing a dance review. I'm not just like, I don't know, I think that it's really interesting to think about the way that contact can both be like so tangible and elusive, and kind of the way that language can be so tangible and elusive as well.
I have always had contact classes where I asked students to reflect in journals on the work. Like I would cull 1 or 2 entries from everybody's journal and I'd put them in a kind of thematic order, and we would publish it, and it would be the thing that they would get at the end of the class. It would be, you know, something to kind of take home with them. When I finished my book, Choreographing Difference, I did this whole piece about, you know, kind of here's the language and mind side, and here's the body and feeling side, and how, you know, I was constantly shifting back and forth and back and forth. And I did this whole big piece using my body and language to talk about those kind of bifurcations in both academia, but also in dance culture, because a lot of people come to dance feeling as if they're not writers. You know, that language is something that is elusive for them, and they feel as if they can express themselves more fully with their bodies.
The writing and dancing winter term in 2010 was amazing. This, like, the basic structure of it was Anne Cooper Albright was teaching kind of the writing component of it, and Kirsty Simpson, she was teaching like the contact part of it. It was like a lot of translation exercises of like, how do you, like, if I am dancing and my partner is witnessing and writing about me, like how do I, you know, then how is that, what is written about that dance kind of, I don't, like translated into like the dancer then reads that transcription of the dance and then dances the dance of that transcription, and kind of like these really interesting ways of kind of like movement and language and how they can inform each other in ways that are like really literal.
And we'll get out those big rolls of paper and we'd do it on a long roll, and then she would hold it up, or a whole group of people would hold it up, and then the other half of the class would go along and read what the drawings were and perform the movement.
It was the first time that I had really kind of combined the two as a practice. And I think that like what Anne did a really good job of doing was like thinking about ways that we can write with our bodies as well, you know? So having huge pieces of paper and markers and not being like, I'm gonna write about dancing right now, but like really figuring out ways to like engage with writing as this embodied practice.
When we do this sort of the transcription where you're watching someone dance and kind of transcribing, like watching what happens through that process, which I try not to like place all these value judgments on it, but for me when I watch that, and I've watched it and done it a couple times, like the dancing that comes out of that is so different, and it feels to me much more linear, and much more like I'm doing this, like, which makes sense because you're looking at this thing and you're trying to like represent it through your movement.